It began with a glitch. On 18th of December 2025, at exactly 02:14:08 UTC, a low-priority monitoring station in northern Finland detected a narrow band pulse that didn't match any known satellite, aircraft, military beacon, or deep space source. The pulse lasted 0.12 seconds, just long enough to be impossible, and just short enough to be dismissed as noise. The system automatically archived it and moved on. But 7 minutes later, the same pulse hit a seismic sensor in Chile, then an undersea cable node near Japan, then a weather balloon over Canada. It wasn't traveling through space. It was traveling through everything, as if the signal had no direction, only intent. By dawn, 11 different types of infrastructure had recorded the same impossible waveform. Nothing unified them except one detail. The pulse carried a timestamp. A timestamp that should have been meaningless. At first, everyone assumed it referred to the moment the signal was received. But when analysts opened the metadata, something froze them in place. The timestamp didn't point to 2025. It pointed to 27 March 2075, 09:52 UTC. 50 years in the future, the first scientist to notice the anomaly laughed nervously and said it had to be a joke, a prank, a corrupted packet. But then the second layer of the signal was decoded. Inside the 0.12 second burst was a compressed audio file, so compressed that each millisecond contained nearly impossible density. When decompressed, the audio played back exactly one sentence: "Prepare for the silence." The room went still. The waveform wasn't formatted like any modern codec. It didn't match military encryption. It didn't match AI compression systems. It matched nothing on Earth. And yet, the accent was human, neutral-synthetic, as if someone had engineered a voice with no nationality. News didn't break immediately. Governments insisted on containment. A multi-agency investigation formed overnight, involving every major scientific body with a working supercomputer. But while they analyzed the audio, a separate team examined the quantum signature found beneath the timestamp. And that's where the impossible truth emerged. The signal wasn't sent using radio. It wasn't gravitational. It wasn't electromagnetic. Its signature pattern matched a theoretical model proposed in the year 2038, a model describing how information might be transferred by temporally inverted particles. Particles that could move in two directions a long time, but only one direction in space, meaning the pulse didn't travel through the world. It arrived everywhere at once, a broadcast not from the sky, but from time itself. And buried inside the audio layer, researchers discovered something even more disturbing: a set of coordinates. Coordinates pointing to a forest in northern Sweden, a place where, for reasons no one yet understood, the future wanted humanity to look first. And the world had no idea what waited there. But the people who reached the coordinates that evening, they would be the first to witness something that should have never existed in 2025. Something that didn't belong in this century at all. The coordinates led to a silent stretch of forest outside Jokkmokk, Sweden, a place so remote that even phone signals struggled to survive. By the time investigators arrived, the sun had already dipped below the tree line. Frost clung to every branch. The air was still enough to hear your own heartbeat. The only sound was the crunch of snow under boots, until the detectors began to vibrate. At first, the team thought it was interference from their equipment, but the readings were too precise, too synchronous. Radiation sensors, thermal cameras, magnetic coils, each one spiked in perfect unison every 61 seconds. The same interval as the pulse from part 1. Something was echoing here, something waiting. A drone ascended above the tree line to scan the area. For 5 minutes, it captured nothing but ordinary wilderness. Then, at timestamp 02:14:08, the exact moment the global pulse first appeared, the drone's feed glitched. Not a normal glitch, a complete freeze. The forest remained still, but the drone's sensors lit up with a phenomenon no one had ever seen. A spherical boundary, invisible to the eye, but detectable as a distortion in gravity itself. A perfect hovering sphere 2 meters above the ground. Inside it, the snow was suspended mid-air, frozen like grains of white dust trapped in an unseen field. And at the center of the sphere was an object, small, metallic, silent, not shaped like any device built on Earth, not shattered or buried, not aged, just resting gently in mid-air, untouched by physics. Every instrument confirmed the same truth. Gravity was failing inside that sphere. Time was slowing. Reality was thinning. The team circled the anomaly cautiously. Someone extended a gloved hand toward the boundary. The moment their hand touched the invisible surface, they recoiled violently. Not from pain, from knowledge. Their mind filled with an instantaneous burst of information. Symbols, diagrams, fragments of words. As if the sphere had compressed an encyclopedia into a single electric shock. One message stood out. Do not interfere with the chamber. The team stepped back, but the sphere responded to their retreat. Its surface flickered. The suspended snow began to swirl inward, spiraling toward the metallic object as though drawn by a vacuum. A low hum pulsed through the forest. The ground quivered, trees rattled without wind. What is it doing? Someone whispered. Though no characters are named, their voices grounded the scene. Before anyone could answer, the object emerged from the sphere, not by falling, not by rising, but by appearing outside it, as if it slid through space without crossing the distance between. The sphere collapsed instantly, the snow dropped. The pulse stopped, and the object lay in the snow, no longer protected, no longer floating. A black cube, etched with symbols no human civilization had ever written. Symbols that matched the metadata encoded in the original signal. The team didn't know it yet. But this cube was the first physical artifact humanity had ever received from its own future, or from something else that lived there. The black cube was transported to a secure underground chamber beneath an unnamed European facility. No public statement was released. No government claimed ownership. The world above continued debating the frozen pulse, unaware that something far more dangerous was now awake beneath their feet. The chamber was built to withstand nuclear blasts, but no one had ever tested whether it could withstand information. The cube remained motionless on a steel table, absorbing light in an unnatural way, as though its surface swallowed brightness instead of reflecting it. Sensors detected no radiation, no magnetism, no heat. In fact, it emitted nothing at all. It was the first truly silent object humans had ever encountered. And then at 03:17 a.m. the silence broke. Not by sound, by memory. Every monitor in the chamber flickered to life, displaying images that no camera had recorded. Vast oceans under unfamiliar skies, colossal structures made of transparent metal, and stars arranged in patterns that didn't exist in any current catalog. It wasn't broadcasting images, it was broadcasting possible futures. Simultaneously 12 of them, each one different, each one terrifying. In one future, Earth was covered in oceanic fog and void of human presence. In another, colossal machines roamed empty cities. In a third, the sky was split by a luminous fracture that never healed. And in the 12th future, the one that appeared longest, Earth was folded into a red glow, like the entire planet was being rewritten from the inside out. The screens shut off. The cube remained still. The analysts watching the feed realized something impossible. It wasn't predicting the future. It was filtering futures, selecting them, rejecting others, as if running a calculation for a timeline that hadn't yet been chosen. Then a new anomaly appeared. The steel table beneath the cube began to frost. Thin cracks spread outward from the cube, forming geometric lines that resembled constellations, but not from Earth's sky. These were star maps from the visions it had shown. Someone noted the pattern's rotation speed. Another noted the modulation frequency. They aligned perfectly with the pulse that froze Earth's sky. The cube wasn't separate from the signal. The cube was responding to it. Suddenly, the frost patterns halted. Everything in the room, lights, machinery, even the vibration of the ventilation, froze for exactly 61 seconds. The same duration as the pulse. Then the cube opened, not like a box, like a lens. The outer surface unfolded silently, revealing an inner chamber filled with a swirling, liquid-like light. A projection rose from the center. A single line of text in a language that did not exist. But as the light stabilized, the text shifted. It rewrote itself, character by character, until it displayed a message in English. The timelines are collapsing. The analysts stared in horror, because the message continued rewiring itself. You must listen to the next transmission. It will not be meant for Earth. For 13 hours, the cube stayed open like an artificial flower of light, replaying the same message across its glowing core. The next transmission will not be meant for Earth. Nobody understood what that meant. Then at exactly 17 hour UTC, the pulse returned. It struck the planet without warning, a silent blast of frozen stillness. Birds paused mid-flight. City traffic stopped like painted models. Steam halted in the air above boiling kettles. But this time something new happened. The pulse didn't merely freeze movement, it froze thought. Millions of people around the world later described the same indescribable sensation, as if their minds were briefly paused, their inner voice muted, their perception flattened into a single frozen moment. Just 1 second, but it felt like an hour. Deep underground, the cube reacted instantly. Its inner chamber spiraled into motion, swirling like liquid starlight. The frost patterns on the floor cracked open, then rearranged into a new symbol, one that rotated slowly, almost like it was searching for alignment. A low vibration filled the chamber. The lights dimmed. A second projection rose from the cube, this time larger, brighter, and much more complex. Instead of images, it displayed something no machine on Earth was built to handle. A cascading stream of symbols, equations, and geometric patterns, thousands per second, forming what looked like a language made of mathematics. The analysts watching the feed could only stare. It wasn't a message, it was an instruction set, a universal code, a blueprint, and somewhere within the impossible torrent of symbols, the cube emitted a single spike of energy that temporarily knocked out every sensor in the room. When the systems recovered, the projection had changed. It now displayed a pulsating sphere of light, not Earth, not any known planet. And then the meaning clicked. It was showing a world receiving a transmission, not our world, another one. A planet orbiting a pale blue star, somewhere far beyond human reach. The cube was telling humanity something unthinkable. Earth had intercepted a signal that wasn't meant for us. The sphere of light expanded. Its surface split into geometric layers, symbols rearranged into a coherent structure, like a decoded page. A single translated sentence emerged. Their cycle is near completion. The analysts exchanged horrified glances. Who were they? And what cycle was ending? Suddenly, the cube's inner chamber flared so brightly the cameras white out. Alarms erupted as the swirling starlight condensed into a thin beam piercing upward into the facility ceiling. A beam that continued rising through earth, rock, and air. Above the surface, the sky itself ignited with the same thin pillar of light, connecting the cube to the frozen atmosphere. Then a final line appeared inside the chamber. Their end is your warning. And the beam of light snapped out, leaving Earth darker than it had ever been. For 10 minutes after the beam vanished, Earth sat in a silence that felt engineered. No winds, no motion, no sound. Then all at once the world exhaled. Winds roared back, clouds resumed drifting. Traffic jolted forward. Birds darted through the sky as if freed from invisible chains. Everything returned to normal, except nothing was normal. Because every device connected to the global data network, from weather satellites to personal phones, had quietly received the same file. No sender, no origin, no path traceable, just a file name, cycle sequence 01. The file was small, only a few kilobytes, yet no system could delete it. And when opened, it revealed only a single image. A perfectly drawn spiral made of repeating triangular segments encircled by unfamiliar symbols. A spiral identical to the message burned into the frozen sky. A spiral identical to the beam of light the cube projected. And beneath it, 6 translated words: "You are not the first world." Governments locked down communications. Scientists were flown into emergency bunkers. Conspiracy forums exploded. Everyone wanted the same answer. What happened to the other world and the one the signal was originally meant for? For 48 hours, the world waited, feared, guessed. Then the second file arrived. Again, no origin, again, no trace. It was titled, Cycle Sequence 02 Final. But this time it wasn't an image, it was a map. A star map, but not of the night sky we knew. It showed a region of space that did not exist in human astronomical databases. A region missing entirely from modern sky surveys. A blank space, a hole. And at the center of that emptiness, glowing faintly, was the same spiral symbol. Underneath it, one translated line, "This is where the first world was." The implication was immediate and terrifying. The other civilization wasn't destroyed. It was erased, not by war, not by disaster, but by something built into the universe itself. A reset, a cycle, a cleansing. One that repeats across unimaginable spans of time. And Earth had only survived this long because humanity had never noticed the pattern. But the moment we intercepted the signal, the moment we understood, the cycle became aware of us. There was one final burst of static. Every screen on Earth, televisions, laptops, billboards, even smartwatches, flickered simultaneously. A final message appeared, translated in every major language. The universe does not end. It updates. A pause. Then, your cycle has been added to the queue. The screens went black, the winds fell silent. And for the first time in human history, the world prayed that curiosity hadn't been a mistake.